Mike Ness from Social Distortion. We were weeks away from crossing the pond and hitting New Zealand and some major cities in Australia, and we're pumped.
Beautiful, Mike. Thanks for joining us today, mate.
Thank you.
No worries. As you mentioned, Social Distortion are coming to Australia for only the second time ever in February for a co-headlining tour with Bad Religion that kicks off in Auckland on February the 15th, before going through Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne and finishing in Perth on February the 19th, mate. So second time in over 40 years, bro. It's not a bad strike rate.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm just trying to look at it like better late than never.
That's a good way to do it. So you have been out here that once before, bro. So what are some of your memories from that last tour?
Oh, well, I distinctly remember I was kind of putting a wardrobe together, of like, I was really getting into, like I was going to all the old, fine men's clothing stores, like the haberdasheries, and the men who were working these places were these older gentlemen, and they were so cool to me because I knew, what I was talking about like, English bench-made shoes or, the English and Italian wools and just, like they just, for them, it was a younger guy who was into it, so that we hit it off really well. And I just remember just enjoying that so much. I must have gone to like 10 of them. Yeah. Yeah.
And this tour is billed as a co-headlining tour with Bad Religion, mate. So what exactly is a co-headlining tour? Does it mean you swap over the headline spot from show to show, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've only really done it once before, and that was with Flogging Molly, which was a great success. It was really a lot of fun. So, yeah, you just swap out every night headlining, and it actually works out cool because some nights if it's a long run, you're like, oh, well, we're playing early tonight. That means I can get to bed early, but it works out really good. It's really a cool thing to do. I could see us doing more of it in the future. Yeah.
And you've chosen Bad Religion to come out and co-headline with, bro. So why choose them? I could imagine anyone would have put their hand up to come out here with you. So why Bad Religion?
I just thought it was a cool opportunity for, we started about the same time. We've survived and have managed to just keep moving forward. There's a lot of similarities. So I just thought it was a good idea, bringing two California bands, that are equally well known and kind of making it a little bit more bang for the buck, I guess.
Yeah. So because you've only been out here the once, mate, it's fair to say that there's going to be a lot of people out there who have never caught a Social Distortion show before, mate. So run us through a typical live show and what people can expect from you.
Well, we might be getting older, but we don't. We take this very seriously. We put on a high energy show, and we start at the beginning of our career and work our way up. In an hour and 15 minutes, and so there's old stuff. There's not so old stuff, and then there's a couple new things because we are getting ready to record an album. So we are going to be throwing in some new songs as well. So, but as well as some classics that we haven't done in a long time.
Yeah. So going back to the start of things, bro, like you started Social Distortion back in 1978. So what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to the band? And where did you sort of fit in to the music scheme, I guess, at the start?
Well, I mean, I was always into, guitar rock since I was, 5 years old. And you just kind of like, you grow up listening to what's playing on the radio, and then you get friends giving you records. My uncles were giving me records, and you get turned on to new stuff. And And then I got into, the glitter stuff, Bowie and Mark, T-Rex and all that. And then it was just kind of a natural progression when I heard, the Sex Pistols. It's like, oh, well, these guys sound like I feel inside, and it was just, the musical climate was pretty much like stadium rock, and then punk hit, and punk was the opposite of that. It's like they're playing small clubs, sweaty clubs, and even though a lot of that first wave of punk was still pretty traditional rock, it was a new style. It was faster. It was more aggressive. It was cooler style. It was attitude. It was rebellion, and it was so. I was already into the counterculture, at that point in my life, and it's like, so I fit right in, but the climate was very volatile through this new thing. It was like, people weren't ready for change, and they, and you walk down the streets with the colored hair and a leather jacket and motorcycle boots and carloads of men who were threatened by us would yell something out, we would flip them off, and they'd turn around and come back, and then you'd have to fight. So it was interesting period.
And then the band had a bit of a brief hiatus in the mid-'80s, mate. And when you returned, the sound sort of shifted away from the more pure punk style to more of a blues-tinged rock-influenced style of music. Like, was that a conscious change, or was that just because you were coming back into a sort of a different musical era, I guess?
Well, I mean, I did kind of, back in the mid-'80s, a lot of the bands, at least in Southern California, all started to sound the same. And, I was watching bands like X and, who had already kind of carved a niche for themselves, and they didn't sound like anybody else, and even bands like the Chili Peppers and Jane's Addiction, they were like not afraid to not sound like everybody else. And I realized that, like, well, we're an American band. I grew up with roots music, and I just decided that I wanted to bring a little bit more of that and combine it with the punk attitude and create, our own sound. And so I think that the records after it were a little bit more accurate as what the direction I wanted to go in. But songs like Prison Bound I didn't know I could write a song that, would be played on the radio at that point, up until that point, we had only gotten played in college radio. And, so it was, a lot of good came from it, from taking a risk. Yeah. And, just, it created a sound that's kind of timeless.
The music world has changed heaps, mate, since you guys started. So have you ever sort of changed with it, or sort of tried to keep up with it, or have you more stuck to your own guns and followed your own path?
Well, I remember about 5 years ago or something, people were saying that guitar rock was going to die, and and I was like, oh, over my dead body, I mean, we pretty much just, look, I've gotten to where I'm at by completely ignoring trends. Yeah. So, to a fault almost. I mean, I couldn't tell you who's popular right now or who's doing this, because I don't know, really. I mean, I do try to keep my finger on the pulse a little bit to find cool younger bands to bring out with us and stuff. Bands that I feel deserve a shot at it. But just to see what's cool and out there. But for the most part, I kind of don't pay attention.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, the answer is, yeah, we stick to our own. We've stuck to our guns, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So you sort of touched on this briefly before, mate, but word on the street is that your first album since 2011's Hard Time and Nursery Crimes is making progress, bro. So what's the update there?
Oh, well, we're scheduled to go and record it as soon as we get back from Australia. So I'm excited.
Hell yeah. And what sort of what direction is it taking so far, man? Is it what people would expect from Social Distortion, or is it?
I think so. I mean, it's signature, it's got, but I want to try and, I don't know, I keep going back to the first wave of punk, the New York Dolls and Iggy Pop and the Stooges, and realizing what, and the early, the Pistols and the early Clash and Ramones, and that period of time, and it's more the attitude and kind of like going backwards. I'm going backwards in order to go forward.
Very cool. All right then, Mike. Well, thanks very much for your time today. Bad Religion and Social Distortion hit Australia. I'll hit Auckland on February 15th before coming over to Australia, mate. And I believe there's still a couple of tickets left to the show. So get yourself along to one, mate. I'll be at the Brisbane show. So enjoy.
All right. See you there.
All right, mate. Take care, brother.